I'm going to work on the wingtips. These are the Aerosport carbon fiber wingtips, aftermarket. And I decided on these for two reasons, maybe three. I like that you can put the optional landing light in here. I did purchase that option. I'm not going to cut these out and install that yet. I'm just going to run just a solid tip at first. That'll be something that I will add in at a later date, because I do have these lights here. And yes, I'll end up having two sets of lights, but you just can't have enough light when you're doing night operations, in my opinion. Reason number two is aesthetically, I like this wingtip design better. I like that it extends out, straight. It doesn't, the factory tip, does this little deal here. I like that this kind of comes out here and goes in. And then third reason is I don't know this for sure, but I have seen others trying to do the factory ABS vacuum formed or thermomolded tips, and they just don't look very pleasing to do the work. To be honest, it looks like they're a big pain in the ass. And maybe they're not, but this just is like way more straightforward. A lot of everything is just like there. You're just kind of putting it together. You're not doing all that fitting and trimming, and you're doing a little bit of it here, but it's like 80% of the work is already done for you. And I like that. And I guess reason number four is, hey, it's carbon fiber. That's cool, right? Weight-wise, these, I remember weighing these compared to the factory ABS plastic ones, and it was negligible. The carbon is heavier, but it wasn't by much. It was on the order of like half a pound, maybe 6 or 8 ounces. So not like you're adding a lot of weight, but you are certainly adding strength. This will be a much more durable wingtip. So anyways, enough of that. What I'm going to do here is I've just clamped the root rib in place, basically kind of spaced it equidistant all the way around, best I can tell. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the wingtip and slide it over, and I'm just going to tape it a couple points to the wing and just make sure that I do have it in the right place. Once I've confirmed that the root rib is in the right place, I will reach in here and I'll come in and I'll match drill through the holes that are in the aluminum outboard rib. Drill holes into the the carbon fiber, so that I can locate my nut plates. Got the wingtip taped up here in place. And by the way, the tape I use for this stuff, it's called Ramboard edge tape. It's used in construction for laying down like a cardboard type product to protect finished floors when you're doing construction. And this is the tape you use. What's nice about it is it's got a really sticky bond, but yet also low tack. So it doesn't leave like a residue or anything behind. It's awesome tape for stuff like this. Much better than regular paper masking tape. Anyway, so I've got this all set up here. Got a nice flush line here. I kind of split the difference between top and bottom, getting these edges. So I've got mostly flush. And you're not going to get it. It's not going to be perfect, but I got it as good as it's going to be, and it's really good. Top and bottom there. Got a nice line. So what I was going to do was come up in here in these inspection holes with like an angle drill or something and find all those holes in the aluminum tip rib and match drill. But it's going to be kind of hard. I think what I can do now that I've got the root rib clamped in place where it needs to be, I can carefully remove the tip without bumping anything. The tip should just come off, and that root rib should be, or that carbon fiber, not the root rib, the carbon fiber tip rib should be in the exact place that it needs to be. It'd be a lot easier for me to reach in through the openings in the rib and hit those holes than to try to come up through those inspection covers. I do run the risk of it moving on me, and then I'm screwed, but I don't think it's going to if I do this carefully. Okay, I've carefully removed the tip, and yeah, now I can more easily get in here. There's a hole there. I think there's some up here. There's here, basically where the flats are. There, and I think back here. I'll go ahead and get in there and then work my way back. And then that will establish the location of this rib. All right, tool of choice here is going to be my offset drill tool. You see me use this before a lot in the fuselage build. And what's nice about this is it uses your 1/4x28 threaded drill bits, like so. And they can thread on either on this side, or you can flip it over and you can thread them in on this side. And where that's going to be useful once I stick it on my drill here is I'm going to be able to come in here and drill from the backside with my drill outside. So like this. And come in here. Now you got to run the drill backwards because you flipped the direction. But I'll come in here, I'll find that hole, and I'm just going to go ahead and drill it. There we go. Now for the 2 holes that are back here, there's quite a bit more reach from the opening to where those holes are, and this is a little too short for me, but that's okay because I have a long one. It's about 2.5 times the length. You can get these in different sizes, and I'm glad I have one of the long ones. So now the trick is to try to find that hole. There we go. Something I want to point out here is I believe RANS made a change on my airplane. I'm serial 300, somewhere before mine, but after Aerosport designed their wingtips for this, because they have these reinforced, if you look, you'll see these little ridged areas. Those are reinforced areas where your nut plates will go. And there are no holes in the wing rib here or here. I believe RANS moved them forward somewhere around here or here. That's where I feel them. So that's okay. What I'll do, that is too long of a reach for me to get my drill in there. So I just took a silver Sharpie on these 2 holes through the rib and drew on through the wing rib, and then I drew on the carbon fiber rib, those locations. That's where I'll know to drill those. And then I'll go ahead and reinforce these areas where those holes are. Here are those locations I marked right there and there with the silver Sharpie. So I can get those drilled. I'll get those areas reinforced, and I can get to installing the nut plates on this rib. Look what I found. I forgot I had this. I actually have quite a few sheets of this. This is forged carbon fiber. It's a little thicker than I'd like. It's 2.4 millimeters, but this will work. You can see I had used this. This is for an AR-15 bolt together 80% complete style AR-15 project I worked on a few years ago. But I've got some nice little pieces like this piece here and this piece here. I'll just snip these off and I can kind of shape them, and I think these will be great little doubler pieces to glue onto the rib there for the supports for the nut plates. All right, I got these cut out and kind of ground a little bit of a radius on the bottom edge to kind of match the radius there. So I'll mark where these go, but basically got one hole here and one hole here. So I'm going to glue those like there and there, and that'll support that area. And then the rest of them are fine. They've all got their little reinforced areas that Aerosport has already done. So I think that's what happened. I think RANS moved those hole locations forward. So Aerosport, if you're watching this, and you haven't already, you may consider moving these over. But easy fix. So for gluing those on, I'm just gonna use some G-Flex here, epoxy by West Systems. But I'm gonna mix a little bit of graphite powder in there. That'll thicken it up just a touch. Not that I need it thicker, but primarily it'll add some strength to the adhesive. Just makes it a little bit stronger. So I'll mix up just a little cup there and get these put in place and clamped in. All glued up there. It's a little messy looking, but you'll never see it. And of course I mixed way too much, but that's fine. I'll let that cure up overnight and re-drill back through those, and then I'm ready to put the nut plates on. These have cured, and these plates are now securely bonded. That'll be my reinforcement for the nut plates. I believe these are 6 I don't know if they're 6 or 832s. I'll have to look. Whatever they are, I need to get those nut plates out and start getting those attached here. To install the nut plates, I'll use my nut plate drilling jig. This has come in extremely handy. And it's a two-step process. You got one side that's just got your main central locating pin, and then the other side has the main pin and then one of the side lug pins. So to start, I'll just flip that in there, and it's got a flexible little handle on it, so in tight spots I can flex it down. You can see it's kind of bent there, but that's why it's designed that way. And I'll orient this how I want. I'll drill that hole, flip it over, that pin will go in that hole, and then I drill that through that hole on this side. I'm just going to go ahead and go through the process on one nut plate, and then I'll do all the rest of them off camera. The next step is to countersink the two outer holes here. I've already got this one done. I did that one to adjust the depth of my microstop here. So I went ahead and worked my way until I got the depth I wanted there. And that's because I'm using these flush rivets. So I'll go ahead and get this one done, show you that, and then I'll work the rest of them later. All right, let me get this nut plate clecoed into place on one side. Put my rivet in here, and I believe I should be able to use my rivet squeezer. Should be able to fit that in here. Yeah. And just give it a squeeze. Do the other one the same way. I got all the nut plates installed, and I went ahead and screwed the rib, carbon fiber rib here on the wingtip rib. Everything lined up when I screwed it in place, so I'm assuming that the fit will be the same. I am gonna take the wingtip and just temporarily stick it back on and check that again. But I'll tell you, it wasn't easy to get all these screws. There's 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's not easy to get to those through these inspection holes. I tried to do it through there, solely through there, just to simulate what it would be like when the tip was affixed to the rib. It's not easy. I actually ended up cheating and coming in here and doing it, which I won't be able to do later. It's got me wondering if I should attach the tip to the rib with some 632 screws with nut plates, maybe 10 of them, 10 or 12 of them across the top and bottom. That's how my Cessna is. And actually another builder who I had been communicating with last year did the Aerosport tips, and he did that. What he did is he glued some aluminum, I think probably is some like 025 aluminum strip as a doubler, glued it to the whole length of the rib here, and then came in and did nut plates. And man, I tell you, you'll lose the clean look here. I mean, but you've got rivets anyway. But talk about it gonna be a lot easier to take this thing on and off later if you need to. But then again, how often do you do that, right? I've taken the tips off of my Cessna twice in 8 years. Once to replace a strobe flash unit, and then once when I ditched the strobes and went to LEDs. Other than that, I've never had to get in there. So I got some thinking to do on that, how I want to handle that. But in any case, this rib fit up good. I'll stick this back on there and check the fit again. I figure before I get going too far and get the rib glued in there, while I have easier access to inside the wingtip, I wanted to get everything set up to mount the nav light. I'm running a Veo. It's a nav slash strobe slash position light, and used the little gasket they included as a template to mark my holes for drilling. Larger hole here will be where the wires will pass through. and then the smaller holes for the mounting screw. I'm just going to use some stainless M3 screws, and on the back side there I will glue in a clinch nut on the back side of each there, and that will at least get that prepared for when it comes time to final assembly. Got my wingtip nav strobe position light mounted, and I'll show you what I did. I ended up not using clinch nuts. I ended up just gluing some G10, 1/4 inch thick G10 plates, some scrap I had. Just bonded those to the inside of the wingtip, and then I just drilled and tapped those to M3. The trick to that, and I've done that a lot on various projects, the trick to that is you'll drill it out 2.3 millimeter, you'll tap it to an M3, and then you'll wick in some thin CA into the threads, let that dry, and then chase the thread, wick in some more, and then chase the thread a second time. And what that does is that soaks those threads with CA glue and hardens and toughens them up. And I guarantee you, for things that are non-structural, things like attaching a wingtip light, for instance, it will not go anywhere. It's there until you unscrew it. So much easier for that. It's actually what I did on the beacon light on the vertical fin. If you go back and look at that episode, that's what I did there. So that's good. The only thing I noticed is I had to de-pin. I had a connector already attached to the wire, and it's a Deutsch connector, and it was way too big to fit through the hole, so I had to de-pin that. No big deal. If I ever need to take that wingtip light off, I will have to just de-pin it every time from the connector to get it to fit through the hole. I can't make the hole big enough, otherwise it would be larger than the light. So that's done. All right, it's back in place, and nothing changed. It didn't move or anything on me, which is nice. I do notice, though, that I'm looking closer at it now. When you suck the wingtip down to the rib, you end up with, so I've got about the thickness of the skin here, and then on the bottom, I do the same thing. I also have about the thickness of the skin. So it's almost like the root rib, I keep calling it the root rib, the carbon fiber wingtip rib could have been about 20 thousandths top and bottom wider to get you more of a flush fit here. There really is no easy solution to that other than bonding like a shim strip on that rib all the way around, which makes me wonder, I'm talking about doing the nut plates, rather than gluing that doubler to the bottom side of that rib flange, if I glued it to the top, that would open up that thickness, and it would allow this to sit more flush, especially right here. This one's kind of interesting. I've got about 2.5 millimeters right here where there's a gap. I'm definitely going to shim that regardless, even if I glue this. And I know that this is following the line like it should have. I remember when I checked that. So, it's just, hey, look, you're not going to get perfect. This isn't like a fully composite airplane where you can go in and get all your lines perfect. This just kind of is what it is. And I'm probably being a little too picky, but I might try to see if I can improve some of those fits a little bit. But overall, it's nice. And I still do believe that with all the work going into this, it's probably still less frustrating than the ABS plastic wingtip. But not having done that, I can't say for sure. It's just a thought. But okay, so next, I need to make a decision how I want to attach this. I'll give that some thought. So I've taken some time to think about this issue where the skin is not flush with the carbon fiber tip. I talked to my cousin, told him about it. He had a great idea. I have to drill and cleco this for gluing up the temporary clecos while it's curing the glue when I'm gluing the wing rib, the carbon rib to the wingtip. What if I inserted some spacers, washers, thin washers, about 20 thou or so thick, at each of those cleco locations? That'll pick them up, and then in between, I'll be using the Scotch-Weld 2216 glue, which is kind of a heavy-bodied adhesive with some filler in it already, and it would take up the difference. And then this would just kind of, because naturally, as it sits here naturally, if I don't push down, it's almost a smooth fit. It's only when I push it down to the rib. So I think my plan was to go about every 4.5 inches. That would get me, I think, 12 or 13 clecos across the top. Put in the washer between each one, see how it goes. The same thing on the bottom. I can do that as a dry fit up. I have to drill those anyway to glue them. So why not, when I do a dry fit up, throw those spacers in there, see how that fit goes. If that works. And then I talked to Jeff Combs out at Aerosport to kind of run that by him. And he felt like that would be a fine solution. The body of that glue, it can certainly handle a little bit of an extra thickness in between the parts. And that's my plan. I'm going to try that out. And worst case scenario, I may just glue in. I may do like a layer of fiberglass. I could do that on the wing rib. Maybe a layer or two of glass. I could glue in an aluminum shim strip. I mean, there are things I could do, but I think the easiest is just space those out at the cleco locations and let the glue handle the rest. And hopefully it will just kind of flow and follow a nice line. Easy enough to try with the dry fit up. So that being the case, I figured I would start my first hole probably about right here. I'm not worried about anything around the front. And when I measured it out, I had 59 inches. And if I went every 4.5 inches or so, I'll mark these out. That will get me about a dozen or so holes across the top. Probably don't need that many if I wasn't going to do what I'm trying. Probably could go, honestly, every 8 inches or so. I don't know what Aerosport calls for. I couldn't find a manual online for these. So I'm just kind of going off of what makes sense here. So I'm going to lay this out every 4.5 inches, get these marked out. Taking the tip off, and after I've drilled, I've gone in and just CA glued a couple washers all the way down at each hole. These washers are about the thickness that I need, I think. And I'm going to try this. I'm going to fit this back on and see how at least the top surface matches up. If I like how that's going to work, then I'll do the same thing on the bottom. And then basically the thickness of the glue will just take up this gap as I work my way down. I'll have to be careful that I don't end up with any kind of waviness, make sure it is uniform. But I think this is going to work. Let me fit this up and let's see. Check it out. Got my carbon tip clecoed in place. So I made a slight change on how I'm doing this. Here's the washers I used at the hole locations, and that picked up the wingtip. You'll see I went ahead, I did decide to go in and glue in some shims in between those. I used the washers to kind of figure the thickness I need. Some of them have 2 washers. They needed a little bit more thickness. Some of them just needed 1. On the bottom side, I did the same thing, but because I didn't want to work upside down, I did the same thing, but I did it on the wingtip. So I added the washers, and I actually didn't need any from here back. It fit fleshly against the wing skin. So for some reason, I don't know why, there's just some variances in the skin. And, every airplane's a little different, I guess. So anyhow, I got these glued on here, and I've got them all sanded and scuffed up before I do my gluing operate. Well, I'm going to take the rib off and glue it off the wing. I don't want to get a little extra glue and then glue the damn rib and wingtip to the wing. But before I do glue up, I'll get this all cleaned off with some alcohol, sand it a little bit more, scuff it up. Same thing over here. This is set up enough to where I'm going to go ahead and do one final fit of the wingtip up to the wing and make sure that all my thicknesses of these are just right. If they're not, now's the time where I can do some sanding here on these shims if I need to, just to get everything just right. But I think I've got it the way this is set up. So, and I did talk to Jeff at Aerosport, and I explained what I was going to do here, and he said, yeah, that's how you'll do it. He said he recalled having to add some shims on his in a similar manner. So this is kind of par for the course here, to be expected, and I'm fine with it. So one final fit, and then I'll take the rib off, and I'll set this up, get it all ready for glue up. That last dry fit up on the wing went well. Everything was just how I like it. So I took the rib off. Now I'm doing one more fit here just to make sure I don't see anything staring at me in the face that says something's wrong. And I don't have it fully clecoed up here, but it looks like everything's gonna be fine. So next step, I guess, now is take this all apart again, get it all cleaned up, make sure the surfaces are prepped for glue, and mix up a batch and go for it. I think for this, I have been using the tubes for gluing the shims. I think for this operation though, I'm gonna use the gun that will have the mixing nozzle with the 2 tubes. I bought a dozen of those. And that way I can kind of control the flow like a caulking gun basically, and lay a bead all the way around and then fit the rib in, and hopefully I don't smush too much glue away. What I will do is as I'm doing it, I can kind of, if I need to add a little bit in there as I go, I could do that. I don't know, it's gonna be like, you know, flying by the seat of my pants here on this. Never done this particular type of operation before, but I'm gonna make it work however I need to do it. I think what I wanna do is I want to oil my clecos because I don't want them getting stuck. I know they probably wouldn't like permanently get stuck, but I don't want them getting mucked up either. So I just took some lightweight, some 20 weight oil, and I'm just going through each of my clecos that I'm gonna use, and I'm just dipping it in the oil, giving a little squeeze, and just lubricating that pin. And a little bit of oil will make its way on the surface of the flat surface of the cleco, just to ensure that any glue that gets on these isn't gonna muck them up. All right, I've got everything ready to glue up. I've taped up the perimeter of the wingtip. I've got the rib. Everything's been all cleaned, degreased, ready to go. I've got my lubricated clecos, and here's the glue. If I hadn't mentioned it before, I'm using the 2216 Scotch Weld. Using the tube version here with the gun. It's ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and I think the way I'm gonna approach this is I'm gonna apply the glue to the wingtip. I'll flip this like so, and I'll apply glue here. I'll flip it over, I'll apply glue on the other side, and then I'll just bring the rib up to it, and I think that'll work. We'll see. It's gonna be kind of messy, but that's all right. Got her all glued up. That actually was not nearly as bad as I thought it was gonna be. It really isn't messy. In fact, I don't think I'm gonna use tape around the perimeter on the next wingtip because it really just didn't make enough mess. And anything that is left over, I can just sand off later. Because now the problem is I got a little glue on there and I got a little bit on the tape, and I think it's just gonna make it more of a mess clean up later. What I found is one tube of this, or one set of these tubes, one cartridge, I guess I should say, is exactly enough to do one wingtip. In fact, I ran out right as so I glued the full perimeter, I set the rib in there, and then there's a little bit of gaps that I came in and I injected around the entire perimeter. I injected some glue and then kind of smoothed it out after the fact, and I ended up finishing right at the front, right when I ran out of glue. So perfect amount of glue in one cartridge. So I'm gonna let this set up. It's 90 minutes working time. I think I'll let it set for like a couple of hours, and then I'll pop the clecos out before it's fully cured, and I'll try to pull that tape off also. And then the little bit of kind of mess I have after the fact, I can probably come in and sand it down if there's any little high spots of glue. I don't think there really is, but there you go. I'm not a composites guy. I've done them in years past. I did a lot of RC scale helicopter stuff back in the day. Of course, that was all fiberglass and composite work. And I never really liked it. I'd rather do woodworking or, aluminum work kind of any day over having to do any type of composite type work. And really, what is this? This is just gluing. This isn't, I guess, truly a composite type of work, but semantics. So I will let this set up, and I'll come back once I've got everything all taken apart, and we'll see what I ended up with. That turned out quite nicely. Like I say, I'm not going to put the tape around the perimeter of the next wingtip because I just found that it wasn't messy enough to be an issue, and it was kind of a bitch to take the tape off because a little bit of the glue would come through these holes and kind of stuck the tape on there. So next one I'm not going to do that, but I'm real happy I got good glue coverage. I was kind of looking in here and it all squished out all the way around. Really good bond. And so what I need to do, I did a little bit of sanding and filing already. I just need to get it just another little shot. And then I need to fill these holes. And I've been kind of thinking about what I was going to do. I was thinking of maybe using some of my lightweight body filler here and tinting it black. But then I started thinking, well, maybe I'll just do some epoxy with graphite powder mixed in. It thickens it up and it makes it good and black, and I can kind of make it into like a putty consistency, and I can just kind of hit it in there and kind of squeegee it out, and that would probably do it. So I might try a little test with one or two doing that method, and if I like it, then I'll go ahead and finish it out. But overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Nice wingtip. Just a little bit more finishing left to do, and then I'll get it mounted up to the wing and do a final check of the fit. Decision time. The airplane's gray. Doing a tribute scheme for the VFA 103 Jolly Rogers. So it's going to be that gray that you'll see on F-14s, F-18s. To be accurate, I guess, in the tribute scheme, the wings would be all the way gray to include the wingtip. However, these are really nice carbon fiber wingtips by Aerosport. And I'm considering, since I'm going to have a black tail, if you recall, the vertical tail and rudder is black with the skull and crossbones. So I'm wondering if I don't have the wings gray and then clear the carbon fiber tips. But what I would do is I would tint the clear with some smoke. So it would be kind of a dark carbon look. It'd be darker than this, but if you looked close enough, you'd see the carbon weave. I mean, it would definitely be there. And then, so then I would have the carbon fiber wingtips, the vertical tail black. Or do I paint the whole thing gray, right? Do I just paint the carbon fiber gray, and then it would be more of an accurate scheme? I don't know, I really like it almost is a shame to cover up the carbon. I don't know what to do. I'm leaning on painting, clearing these with the tinted clear. That's what I'm thinking about doing. Now, in terms of how this turned out, I'm pretty pleased. I could have spent 4 or 5 more hours really dialing in the fit and getting it maybe 10% better. And at some point, you're kind of at the point of diminishing returns, and you have to call it. And where I settled in, I think it's just fine. The fit is quite nice. I'll be definitely happy with it. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and call this episode complete. Left wingtip is pretty much done. The only thing that's left to do now is I got to mirror the right side, and which I've already started. I already got the right wing carbon rib here. I got my plates glued in for the nut plates. And then I've got the wingtip over here, and I've already kind of done some trial fitting and whatnot. So I'm not going to show anything on that because that would just be an exact duplicate of what we've already seen. So here we go. Wingtip is complete.